Okay, let's get Tiffany Anderson on because we are going to start talking. If any of you out there have worked for the government and believe that you were not treated correctly in your job, then Tiffany is going to be able to enlighten us on this as well. But trust me, this vector department is something all of us need to go to find out who is our local vector department. Go to their website on a regular basis because they're going to be saying, oh, we're spraying your house and you don't even know it. Okay, that's why you have to get to know your vector department and go to their website on a regular basis because they do not get this information out because they don't want you to know. Okay? And we have been talking to Tiffany for a couple of months now with all these reasons why they don't want you to know. And just from talking to her, I thought, okay, factory farms, bad. Never even thought about all the things that are kicked in with the vector department as a result of these factory farms and their dirty, disgusting practices that then in turn cause massive pesticide use. So this is the kind of thing that we have to start thinking about because it is affecting us in so many ways. Okay, so we're going to get down to misuse of funds today. Now, these people are given large chunks of money, and trust me, they want to spend it because they want to have a reason to ask for that amount and more the next year. And so they find ways, they make ways to spend it, which is some of what we've been talking about. But they're also padding their pockets in ways that I just could not even comprehend before I talked to Tiffany. So I'm going to pretty much I'm introducing her right now, and I know that she's been doing her due diligence and been doing her research and is ready to give us this information that anyone that has worked for the government, you want to pay attention to this. Anyone that is concerned in how our government is spending money will want to listen to what Tiffany has to say. So Tiffany.
Hi.
Welcome to Smart Health Talk.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
Yes, and so I'm going to pretty much give you the floor here because I know that you have a bunch of stuff to tell us. And I'm just going to kick back and learn with all the rest of our Smart Health Talk listeners. So everyone, please stay tuned and let's get a reality check here. Let's get the truth for once, okay? About what the heck is really going on with our taxpayer money, with our property, with our health, with our environment, with our cities, all this stuff with our schools. This is what we're talking about here. It's affecting us. So go ahead, Tiffany. And
Wouldn't I shock you if I'm just like, Elaine, I just don't really have anything to say today. I
would know there's no possible way.
Anybody who knows me would know there's no possible way. I just,
Absolutely.
I was just thinking how funny that was because I was usually every time before we go on the air, a week before, I'll have some kind of trip or some adventure that brings me through a previous experience that I'd had, and it always prepares me for the week that we're going to talk about. I have some ideas, but the very first thing I want to do is I want to plug my blog, and my blog is culexpipien.com, and that's CulexPipien.com. My story working for a special district. And the gist of that blog is it has 40 years of documentation on it. It has 20 years of my deceased supervisor's records that he felt necessary to hold on to. And then it has about 20 years of my own documentation on there. And there's an index in there, and it's linear. And now that we've done these interviews, all the interviews are on a post titled My Interviews. And what I'm in the process of doing right now is I've listened to each episode, and then what I'm going to be doing is putting underneath each episode on my blog um, under the interview, it'll say click here for supporting documents. That way, it's just not Tiffany Anderson coming up blowing a lot of hot air, but there's actually documentation to support the things that I say, because that's very important. And so I just kind of wanted to get that out there. I think
Well, I
where
knew that you had that, and that's the reason that I came on. That this is something that you have been working on for a long time, and gathering the documentation was not an easy task. These people do not willfully hand over this stuff, do they, Tiffany?
well, okay, by law, and you know this part, Elaine, because I know you have some human resource background, but by law, anything that has my signature on it, so whether it's payroll, whether it was an employee evaluation, whether it was a medical record, anything that has my signature on it, when I request those records from the Department of Labor, through OSHA, or just through my own union rep, that my employer is required by law to provide those documents within a timely fashion. We're talking like no longer than a month, and this is 2018, and to date, they still cannot provide accurate payroll records. They refuse to provide accurate time roll, just all the documents that I've requested, they
Why
won't.
is that, Tiffany? Why are they not providing this? Is this collaborating your story in some way?
Because it would be it would be harmful to them, because yes, it would prove what I'm saying, and it's detrimental to them. They've committed payroll. See, I wasn't aware. My employer, they have an accountant who does all our bookkeeping and keeps track of our sick days, keeps track of vacation time, and everything is done in-house. And then what they do is then that way they have complete control over it. Nobody else sees it. Then they send just the payroll records, what they want released, the checks they want released to the auditor's office. So the auditor's office never sees our payroll. The auditor's office never sees the fraud that they're committing, but they have been committing payroll fraud from at least when I began my employment, because I've seen it
What
with
about your pay stub? Is there more information on what they have than just like say a payroll stub that you would have in your possession?
Okay, so the payroll stub would reflect that I was working all the time, never took any time off up until my surgeries, till my knee surgeries. But we'll say the first three exposures, and
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 this is
all
to
of
pesticides for those that are listening for the first time.
yeah,
So,
all three of my pesticide exposures, but specifically to the formalin, the illegal use of formalin. Those records, they they do not match with the auditor's office. So the auditor's office actually gave me my paychecks as if I'd never missed any work, and yet behind the scenes my employer was reporting the injuries to their insurance company, and they I can't really understand how they do some of the stuff that they're doing, but I know it's fraudulent. It doesn't make any sense. Like, one of the things that they will do is they will bring a deferred, like, an investment company. I think it was National Deferred. They bring them in and they tell us why we should be investing in these mutual funds, and these will be, like a secondary retirement for us. So then what seems to be a history is that when we're injured, we have to actually cash those out. I have every time I've invested in their in their deferred meaning you don't pay tax on the front end, you pay tax at the back end. And so they're taking my money, they're making interest technically I would be making interest if I would never touch the funds. But unfortunately, when you get injured at work and then they deny that you're injured and you're not getting any salary or getting an income, then you need to cash that out, and then you're penalized because it looks like you're getting a big chunk of money. I know that they make money off of that.
Well,
Um,
it's not just that, because I know from my own personal experience, because that I'm pretty sure since you're with the department that you were, that they're taking out your Social Security. Are they taking out your Social Security instead of you paying? Because, like, with the county here, they have a credit union that's for county employees. And so the employees, instead of paying Social Security to the federal government, they pay Social Security to the county retirement organization.
yes, ma'am.
And they
Exactly.
and then they give you your Social Security money instead of the federal government giving you
Yes.
your Social Security money. And so what you're pretty much cashing out is your Social Security. And yes, you get a huge penalty, a huge
No,
one.
no, Elaine, now check it out. Now see, the thing is that we don't pay any state disability. No, that's something totally different. What I'm talking about, the mutual fund was a deferred comp was something that they brought in, and I agreed to
It's a way for
participate.
you to make more money for your retirement because you're
Correct. But the other retirement that you're talking about, where they're self-insured, and the CalPERS retirement, most like what I've noticed is there's a theme with women specifically where they terminate the woman before she hits the 10-year mark. So she is not entitled to her. You have to be vested, and in order to be vested, you have to work there for 10 years. I would have been at least the third woman that I'm aware of who was terminated, um, and would not have received her retirement. They had one that was right on the cusp, and I actually have her documents online. The retaliation and what they did to her, because I wanted to show a history of it. And so she was there 10 years prior to my employment, but my boss had saved her records because my boss actually tried to help her. My boss and multiple employees tried to help save her job, but the district found it to be beneficial to them. Just think, when you have an employee that has worked 10 years, and you've been putting into the retirement, and then you just get rid of that employee, and then that's your money. And so,
really, oh, so they get to keep all that money that she put into retirement?
where does it go if it doesn't go to her?
She didn't have to cash that out?
She couldn't. She wasn't vested. You have to work 10 years to be vested. So that money that was being put in, she wasn't entitled to it. And in all
Well, I worked
actuality,
for the county less than 10 years, and it was like less than 6. And my retirement money I could take out anytime I
did
wanted.
you, I mean, there could be different, every,
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
there,
there could be
you know what I'm saying?
different
I mean, they have different
there could be
parameters
different
for
rules,
each.
but that really is like that's tough, man. 10 years. And the thing that really gets me when I hear that, Tiffany, is first of all, you're in a job where you're subjecting your body to poisons day after day after day. And the motivation to stay there and to keep putting up with that is probably that is a big part of it, is that 10-year mark and being able to have that retirement. That is a motivation to even stay taking it. Taking
Elaine, my motivation to stay first was just my mothering instinct. I had a daughter who was in high school, and I wanted to keep her in an upper skill um, lifestyle. I didn't want her to live in the poverty lifestyle that I was raised in. I didn't want her to have to deal with the barrier. I mean, I didn't want her to have to.
No, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what
Okay,
you're saying.
okay. So that was my initial
Yeah, you wanted her to be safe, basically, number one.
I wanted her to live in, yeah, I mean, I did, yes,
Because when
absolutely.
you're living not living in poverty, you're living in a different neighborhood that's usually a safer neighborhood. You're probably going to a safer school area. I mean,
Okay, so
all these
okay,
things end up being safer for her.
okay, here's what I'll just be blunt because that's who I am. I'm a blunt person. When I was in seventh grade, I moved into a highly Hispanic neighborhood. I lived in a poverty-stricken neighborhood. I had boys trying to rape me, and I had girls that wanted to kick my butt all the time. I felt threatened to go to school. I was afraid to go to school. I didn't want that from my daughter, and so I knew that if I was going away to work every day, I needed to keep her in a neighborhood where, those threats would not be there. And so I found this neighborhood, and this particular job provided the revenue that I needed to keep that lifestyle for her. And then,
No, yeah,
it got,
you're right. I've talked to kids that like everyone, all the kids in the whole room knew someone that had been shot and killed. Where all of them knew someone that had actually been shot and killed, which is scary, and it's perfectly understandable. That's what I wanted for my kids. I was just like you, and I took a government job.
don't I mean, don't I mean, so initially, I initially I went in there for survival mode, but at some point I realized, I realized, what, these people are not my people. I'm not, I don't, I don't talk like them. I don't walk like them. I go back to my job application, and it cracks me up because on my job application, it says like, what are your qualifications and what are your hobbies and what are your strengths? And I was a Bible study leader. I was a Boy Scout leader. My number one priority was my children, and that being a mother was the greatest joy of my life. Seriously, this is on my application. This was what made me a great candidate to be a pesticide applicator. So when they knew the environment they would be taking me into, when I'm proclaiming my faith, and they're intentionally projecting me into a atmosphere that was hostile, that was, the sexual harassment was the way it was. I mean, I don't know what outcome they expected. And so so my thing is never, it's not my job to change people. And I knew I didn't fit in, so I enrolled in a bachelor's program at Humphreys Law School, to become a paralegal. So I had an exit strategy, but even my exit strategy, that was a threat to them. That made, they didn't even want me to leave on good terms. They didn't even want me to leave on my own terms. They have such little value for, I don't know if it's just women or people in general, but when you see somebody's making another way for themselves, and they've already planned on leaving, why would you take your foot and shove them out the door, a little bit quicker? Unless you just have so much hostility for either a woman specifically, or for the actions the things that I stood up for, the values.
Well, and last week we were actually breaking it down to why we're even talking about this right now. Sorry. But we know that this costs taxpayers money in the end.
Whew, you have no, okay, so this one supervisor and his girlfriend, they began litigations in the workplace, starting with the assistant supervisor that they gave the heart attack to, and they have been in litigations over this couple, and supporting and protecting their misconduct from 2006 until 2018, because things are still not settled. And then you see
Well,
not only
what's the litigation? What are the charges against them?
Well, the litigations would be every work comp claim that was filed, um, and then also my EEOC charge. There was a secretary who worked there. Her name was Michelle Morgan, and she filed an EEOC charge. She had a right to sue, and she was in litigations with them in 2013, the same time I was given my right to sue. They have been in litigations. I mean, it's
So they're doing these acts in the workplace that are totally against the law,
correct.
at which in turn gets lawsuits started against them, which
Work
all this is
injuries.
using taxpayer money.
And then there's the work injuries. Okay, Joe Cirelli. I'm just going to name his name because Joe Cirelli was not even he had been there a year. He was not certified. He was hospitalized for pneumonia. Now, so that injury alone should have they should have filed. The employer should have filed with the Cal OSHA, and they should have reported this guy's pneumonia and hospitalization. Instead, they took him off the payroll. I have a copy of that, and they took him off the payroll. They actually gave him his payroll. They gave him his payroll check as if he was still, employed, but they took his status off as an employee while he was hospitalized. Then he broke his right arm. And because what they were doing is they were killing the fish back at the ponds that we had at our White Slough facility. So they had us out going and harvesting the fish out in people's swimming pools. So they were in Stockton and they were trying to net these fish, and there was a bunch of algae. Joe fell and he broke his right arm. Now, I had already
Just that whole situation where, okay, because of what they did, they killed the fish.
yes.
Because they're doing all these things wrong to begin with. So then that triggers the next thing, which sends you out in the field to so you don't have any fish, so you need them for some sort of purpose, I guess, and you have to go get fish that you left at other people's pools to keep the mosquitoes out of those pools. So you go back and you get fish that you left other places.
It's
Uh,
not even, Elaine, it's not even that we want to keep mosquitoes out of people's pools. The problem is that they took this project, which was a $1 million project or a multi-million-dollar project, creating a fish hatchery, this illusion that we're going to be producing all these fish, and it wasn't happening. We were actually killing them. So we had to go out and we had to be able to produce and provide fish because we have the facility that they have put so much
well,
money into.
why were the fish in these other people's pools?
We would put them in there.
Okay, that's what I thought. You guys had
Yeah.
put them in there, so then you
Yes.
kind of go back and harvest out of
Yes.
other
Go back to
people's
harvest.
pools.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I had thought.
So,
Okay,
so, so my point is that like, um, Joe Sorelli was hired in my absence. I had been removed from my first knee surgery, my first right knee meniscal surgery, and during that time, I was not given any type of, they call it modified duty, and modified duty could mean that they could bring you in the office. We were in the process of like transitioning from one record keeping system to a computerized record system. So I could have been in the office doing, this transition. Instead, the manager was angry at me. My knee surgery was due retaliation. I mean, I was injured due to retaliation. The technician who I was
so
replacing had been.
punished in the workplace for being injured after they put you out there in that field because you injured your knee because you tripped over something that just
I
was
didn't trip.
sticking out of the ground.
I didn't trip. It's just pastures, irrigated pastures have a lot of erosion, and so you're not walking on stable ground. But not to mention, to gain access to some of these properties, I was required to scale fences, and I'm like 4-foot fences, 5-foot fences, 6-foot fences. but the irony in all of this
And
is that
no fence scaling training
no
was
fence
added to
scaling
the
training, nor did I have any electrocution training, like when the first time I
And what
grabbed one of
about
those
Bob Wire? I mean, did you have to go over Bob Wire?
yes, yes, there of course there are always barbed wire,
So what do you do?
but
You'd like throw a coat over it or a blanket or
no,
something?
I was kind of tiny, so sometimes I could take the barbed wire and stretch it, and I could fit in between.
Oh my
But the
God.
thing that really got me, this has pissed me off, is I went out there with no training, and I went one time, my feet was in the water, and I grabbed the electric fence, not knowing it was what it was. No training again. So next thing you know, I'm being jolted with electricity from my teeth, head to toe.
Oh, that's the worst. I hate that.
You know,
And what about the dirtiest? Like you talked about human waste last week in graphic terms to remind us about some of the gross, disgusting things that are found in human waste.
well,
Was
okay,
what, did you get
I
stuff
want to
on
finish.
you
I
that
want to
like
finish.
totally disgusted you before? Have you
Um,
got
okay, so
dirty?
check this out. I wanted to finish this one story, which was
Okay,
okay. So the job that I was doing where I was injured, I had been put in place to replace a guy who was injured and removed. He'd had 30 years experience, was injured in his area, and was removed from work.
so he
Period.
had
Could
30 years experience and he was injured even
yes, and he
after
was
30 years experience.
yes, and they, instead of correcting the problem, they put me in there knowing he was harmed, knowing I would get harmed. So that's intentional negligence right there. That's not even just a work comp claim. It's intentional negligence and it's intentional malice. But my point was, me and Tom, his name was Tom Beard. Tom Beard was not allowed modified duty. I was not allowed modified duty. But I show up to work after my surgery, and there's Joe Sorelli with an arm sling, and he broke his right arm. And I looked at him, I go, I thought they didn't have modified duty. And he just looked at me like, I mean, some people get modified duty and some people don't. So I just wanted to know how somebody got to drive around with one arm, when that's against the law. So I just kind of wanted to kind of finish that story. But if you want to talk about human waste, we have there was one employee, his name was Ken Sabati, and Ken Sabati was assigned to the Ripon area. He fell into the Ripon waste pond, and he had severe medical issues. So he filed a exposure claim, and they had actually settled. The employer had settled with the injured worker who had the exposure to the raw sewage, and I mean, he had issues like mental. The person who took over his territory said his maps were upside down. They said they go, whatever happened to him, it affected his mind, his thinking, his critical thinking skills. But so after they settled, the manager came back and was like mocking the employee, going, "Hey, he could have got a lot more money for his injury." And so the word got back to Ken Sabati, and Ken Sabati sued them a second time, and was successful. That's the last. So that I think that was like around 2001, and that was the last exposure claim that's been acknowledged in the workplace. Although that is not the last exposure claim that has happened in the workplace. And Cal OSHA should be all over that. Cal OSHA should have a document for every single employee that has been injured in the workplace. And I
Aren't they
can tell you,
monitoring this vector department and asking the question, why are we not getting any reports? Are they what department is absolutely perfect and never has any problems? I mean, that can't even
especially
be
with
realistic.
pesticides, especially with pesticides. But I found this attorney, the one who handled most of the work comp claims in the workplace. His name is Eric Helfrey, and he works for Stockwell, Harris, Mueller, and now after handling all our claims, he actually became a partner. And I looked on his Twitter account, and it said, "Playing the game until," and he said playing the game until the end or something like that. And I just thought, my life is a game to you. I mean, I don't know, Elaine, if you can see,
Well,
okay,
they train these people that if they say they have cancer, that they discourage them from what? From what was the seminar you said that they
oh
would.
yeah, no, and you know what? Yeah, him and a doctor that they use to help debunk their claims, and they actually use them. They actually use it. It's fighting cancer claims in the workplace, and it was specific to firefighters to denying. And see, the thing is that firefighters by law are supposed to have lifetime insurance. They're supposed to retire with insurance, and there's not supposed to be any question whether they were injured on the job, because their job is so hazardous, because they're taking such a risk. But now these attorneys, I swear, these attorneys, they're so greedy. I mean, we need to get rid of some of these attorneys, these corporate
Shysters.
yeah. But okay, so back to Stockton Sewer. So when I was hired in 2004, um, our sewer plant, Stockton Sewer, was having a lot of leaching, and it was leaching over, and they would put a CO2 baited trap over there, and they were starting to get high trap counts. And so the manager told.
And these are mosquitoes, right?
Yes, they're mosquitoes. And if we ever get the opportunity, I would love to explain to you the different species of mosquitoes, because each one carries its own disease and their metamorphosis cycle is unique to each other. They're independent of one another. They're not all the same. Not all mosquitoes are the same. But
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, and you got me looking, and I was very surprised at all these different kinds of mosquitoes that I'm not very aware of. But
yeah, there's Culex, there's Aedes, there's
okay, okay, we got 5 minutes. I want
okay, so
I just need like two to, because I wanted to tell one other story that I had to go through the past week as
okay,
well.
the sewer plant. So the sewer plant, the person whose zone it was the manager told him, I want you to go there and I want you to treat your sewer plant. And he was an assistant supervisor. His name was Larry Frazier. And Larry Frazier said, you first, to the manager, John Stroh. So John Stroh and him had like a standstill. Like Larry's like, I'm not going out there. We know what happened to Ken Sabati. I'm not getting myself subjected to all the bacteria, viruses, and all of the different things. And so they sent me out there because I was a new employee, and they sent me and another employee. It wasn't my zone, and didn't have any training, didn't have any knowledge of sewage handling, but yet I was sent out there to do the work of an employee who absolutely refused because he knew the dangers. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Elaine.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, yeah. The thing that happened to me is our government at work here. I mentioned that Vicane, which is when they tent houses, this has a gas in that is equivalent to sarin. It's an organophosphate, which is a chemical weapon, and the insecticide came first, then the chemical weapon. And they tent this house, and there's no way that house is sealed completely shut. So they pump that gas in. The gas is coming out even before they start to release it up in above. They have some pipe that goes above. I had so much damage. They destroyed my yard. I had giant tropical leaves. They're black. They're dead. I had thousands of milkweed. Destroyed the leaves. So I call up there. They try to. I had someone come and inspect my yard for a nursery. They told me that they keep records of these tenting of the houses, that they could look it up. When I call someone at the Department of Ag to file a complaint, not only do they give me the runaround, I still don't know if I filed it. I kept telling I want to file a official complaint. They tell me they don't keep records. Then
Oh,
I
dear.
talk to another guy, and he tells me, just give me the address.
Mm.
So if he just needed the address, they have the records, because I think we need to keep track of these Vicane. I've been exposed 3 times in a year, actually 4 times. Another guy down the street did it. And this is not right. We should not be exposing people to this kind of exposure over and over again. And I know that organophosphates are one of the worst of all, the most toxic. And I just want to thank you for joining us again today, Tiffany. This information, I am sure there are a lot of people out there that have been wronged in their job, that have been manipulated like this to rip them off, to deprive them of benefits, to deprive them of being able to file a claim when they get hurt on the job, and just the mental abuse on the job, putting people in dangerous positions. With total disregard to what can happen to them on the job,
and denying them medical care
yes,
afterwards.
yes, and this, and yet they are over manipulating money and pocketing money in ways that is not even being investigated.
Right.
The people that we're supposed to depend on to watch out for us in these situations are not doing their job. They're acting like nothing is even happening as far as we know, because you've been a victim to all this. So we know that something in this system is not working correctly. And I just want to thank you for having the courage to stand up and help bring attention to this, because until we start talking about it and people see the courage and understand their options, they're just going to still keep taking it when we have to stand up and fight this. Okay, everyone, please go and check out Blue Monarch Project. And those of you that want to join us tonight, we're going to release some butterflies. So join the fun. Okay, bye-bye, Tiffany.